This episode is brought to you in part by Exoterra. If you're as passionate about reptiles and amphibians as I am, you know that quality matters. I use Exoterra products on all my reptile and amphibian enclosures, which is why I'm excited to be partnering with them. From naturalistic decor to innovative lighting and enclosures of all sizes, Exoterra has everything you need for your cold-blooded companions. Exoterra. Make your reptiles feel at home. This episode contains a paid sponsorship placement for True Chroma by Faunalux. Lighting reptiles isn't just about brightness or giving UVB, it's about illuminating the world that animals actually thrive in. Introducing True Chroma by Faunalux, a premium, revolutionary LED spotlight purpose-built for animals. Faunalux has worked with lighting experts and biologists to develop something totally new. Reptile Vision Technology, a bespoke single-source chip delivering high levels of visible light and proportional UVA1. That means your animals can get true full-color vision for the first time. Tried and tested by zoos, vets, and passionate keepers worldwide, True Chroma is now available at fauna-lux.com/expertidiot10 for 10% off your order today. True Chroma from Faunalux. Educated by nature. This episode is brought to you in part by Unlimited Exotic Pets. Every day is Veranda Day for Nick Lillis, and it shows. At Unlimited Exotic Pets, Nick produces high-quality monitor lizards with a deep commitment to ethical care practices and top-tier nutrition. These aren't just pets. They're responsibly bred, ethically raised animals. Whether you're looking for a new companion, starting a breeding project, or anything in between, Nick has you covered. Unlimited Exotic Pets, keeping and breeding quality without limitations. Love reptiles? Don't miss this. If you're passionate about reptiles, amphibians, and everything cold-blooded, Reptiles magazine is a must-have. Each issue is packed with expert care tips, stunning photography, and the latest news in the reptile world. Whether you're a seasoned herpetologist or just starting your reptile journey, this magazine has something for you. Subscribe today and stay informed on the best ways to care for your scaly friends. For only $14.99 a year, you can step outside your algorithm and get exposure to things that you wouldn't normally see or learn about. My family reads Reptiles magazine, and you should too. Visit subscribe.reptilesmagazine.com to get started. This is the Expert and the Idiot podcast. If you like the show and you'd like to support us, there's a link to our Patreon in the description below. Some benefits include getting access to new episodes up to a month in advance. There's also links to USARK and USARK Florida. If you're not already a member, please sign up. Enjoy the show. All right, welcome to episode 69 of The Expert and the Idiot. Today I'm talking to Gerard Bosch of Oceania Exotics. And we were just talking about Oceania. That is, you go ahead and explain it.
Well, it's the continent that encapsulates Australia, Indonesia, I believe Indonesia, New Guinea, New Zealand, and, I was just saying how, large portion of it is underwater, so it looks like Australia is an island, and New Guinea's an island, and of course all the Indonesian islands. But it's because the sea levels have come up so much that it's actually sunken everything that's underwater, but it's all one large landmass. That's
pretty wild.
Yeah.
So
what history lesson?
Yeah, what all are you are you keeping just animals from that region, or do you ever plan on branching out?
There's always stuff, that I would love to get into. It's also cool. I would have a room full of colubrids if space and money was no object. I would have a ton of boas, but just trying to keep my focus into that little realm.
What kind of colubrids and boas? Like if you were to get 3 colubrids, what would they be?
I really like the Alterna,
Mm.
the king snakes, any kind of Pituophis,
Mm-hmm.
any of the bulls, any of the gopher snakes, pine snakes. They're all so cool.
Yeah.
And Eastern indigos, which
Oh
I don't
yeah.
think I can legally have, but my dad had one years ago, and such a cool animal.
Yeah.
Really cool. Not fun to maintain though, because they are shit factories.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard that. That's like the biggest, most off-putting thing about basically all the colubrids is just kind of how much they eat and then just having to clean up after them.
Yeah, volume in, volume out, and they're just metabolisms are so much faster. What does Nick say? The python's the lazy man's pet,
Yeah.
and that, or a busy man's pet.
Yeah, I would say that the boas are like the lazier or the busier man's pet. They go to the bathroom even less, you know.
Then, yeah, I had a pair of Sonorans probably
Okay.
about 2 years ago. I was starting to branch out into the boas, and my wife's like, "Do you really need boas right now?" It's like,
The answer is yes.
Boas. Yeah. I was like, I will circle back to the boas at some point.
So how did you get into keeping? You said your dad had an Eastern indigo when you were a kid?
My dad had 300 snakes
when I was
a kid. Yeah. So growing up, he joked around. He said we had the menagerie at our house. At one point he had the 300 snakes of all kinds of different stuff: blood pythons, berms, albino berms, green berms. What else did he have? Backlots. He had tons of different colubrids. As a kid, I remember being 4 years old, and he brought home just a regular Colombian boa in a like one of those hexagon tanks, and it was in the living room. And I have a picture somewhere of me at 4 years old with the snake on my hand. So it's been a long trip with reptiles, but
Wow.
he had tons of freshwater fish, arowanas and red-tailed cats. My dad was an extremist. If he got into a hobby, it was to the max. And he had that boa when I was young, and then nothing for a long time. And one day he worked doing landscape construction, and he unearthed a group of like hibernating black racers in a drain pipe. So the house that I grew up in, my parents had a greenhouse off of their bedroom on a sliding door. So this was the winter. He brought it home. He set it up in a tank, and it woke back up because the temps were 80s during the day or 70s. So it kind of reanimated, and after a couple weeks, there's more snakes started showing up. And he had anoles running around, little green anoles running around the greenhouse with some orchids in there and stuff. And then eventually the finished basement became the reptile room and the reptile basement. And, this was 92, 93, maybe even earlier, 90, 91. Because I think I was still in middle school or even 5th grade when he really got into the snakes. And this took me all through high school into my early 20s.
Wow.
Where he had stuff. And he bred the Maclots. He bred the Berms. He bred, I think, Suriname red tails. So he had quite a collection. I've found some pictures a couple years ago in storage of some of his stuff, and I'm like, I didn't even remember him having an emerald, but he had an emerald.
Wow.
So yeah, then I got into my teenage years, early 20s, got into cars and motorcycles and all that stuff, and really kind of stopped helping him with the snakes. And I think he just lost interest in it and ended up selling everything probably around 2002-ish.
Mm-hmm.
So I, moved out and went about my 20s, 30s. And I would always kind of pop back in and see what was going on with reptiles. I knew at one point I would want them again. So moved out to Colorado in 2014, came back home to New York in 2017. And I guess I was home for about a year. And I was like, I can get a snake. Yeah. I decided I wanted a chondro. So I did the absolute worst thing. I ordered a import chondro from Outback Reptiles, and that went about as well as you would imagine it did. I think that thing lasted about 6 months.
Wow.
So I was like, okay. So I end up meeting my wife. We're dating, get married, have a daughter, and it was probably about 3 years ago. I was telling her about my dad with the snakes and stuff, and I was like, I don't think we'll ever get rich off of it, but it would be a good way to make some extra money. I could breed some snakes, and I was showing her chondros because that's what I was initially really wanted to get back into. And, I was showing her some of the crazier stuff, which now I look back, I'm like, I didn't even know what I was looking at. I was showing her like the sickness and all these wild designer chondros. But my dad had a jungle carpet years ago, which I look back now is the drabbest, most brownish, plain jungle carpet. But I always loved that snake. So I started looking at carpets, and Poplins were actually, or IJs then, were just coming into the hobby at the time. And I remember being blown away by the side flames on them. And I was like, ooh. So I started thinking about it, and I was looking. I bought my first snake back in, since I've been back in, was a Gamma Sib from Martin Roseman.
Yeah.
Really, really nice, clean black and yellow. I was like, all right. And then I started learning. I'm like, oh, well, it's not a pure jungle. It's a cross between a coastal and a jungle. Then I went into really researching poplins, and I was like, okay, this is what I want. So I bought a Poshead Trio from Nick, probably 3 years ago. They're 21s. So they were about a year old at the time. And I've just grown from there. Really kind of settled into the poplins, and that's what my lane. But I like more of the whole variegata complex, the Novas, the Cape Yorks, the Darwins. Eventually, my goal is to have all of them.
Nice.
So I'm working my way that way. But I took a little detour recently and got a pair of jungles.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I got a pair of those Pas Ocelot jungles from Riley, the striped.
Oh, nice.
And he's holding back. I worked a trade with him for a couple poplins that I was downsizing, and he sent me a pair of those. And I've got my inlands, which I love. Absolutely. I think they're awesome. But I think I'm going to move on from them for the time being. Just the space thing. at one point I I went nuts. I think I had 7.13 pop wins.
Oh my God.
Yeah. and you get to that point where you go, this is probably too many. I'm not going to really be able to house 13 adult females reasonably. So been downsizing for the last year. And I guess probably 2 months ago, I was looking and I'm like, I just really have to cut some stuff. So I think the inlands are gonna go, which I don't want to, but it seems like they're really gaining a foothold. So I don't think I'm gonna have to worry about being able to find inlands if I want them somewhere down the line. I think at the time when I bought my female, I found her on Morph Market and immediately responded to the ad. I think that was only the 4th or 5th inland that had ever been listed on Morph Market.
Wow.
And that was 3 years ago. About 3 years ago. And now there's like 17 or something. So, and I know how many people have inland clutches cooking right now. So I think inlands are here to stay when I want to circle back to them.
Yeah, it's a cool thing seeing them pop up more and more.
Yeah, I can think of 4 people just off the top of my head that have inland clutches going this year. So
yeah,
and they're only going to get better the more they're bred. You know, you'll start seeing some of those higher orange ones, and I don't know if we'll get the absolute crazy stuff that they have in Australia, but
yeah.
So yeah.
All right. Do you plan on getting any more jungles, or are you pretty set with just the pair? Is that just
Can my wife hear me right now? Lucas has those Priceline jungles that he just got the eggs from. Those things are just nuts. I've been messaging him about those things since he posted up the original pair when he got them. He's like, are you going to breed those? Are you going to breed those? He's like, hopefully this year. So then he had posted, I think, that they weren't going to go. I was like, bummer. And then he just got eggs from them. So I'll be keeping my eye on those, but we'll see.
Yeah, they're so cool because they're the most unjungle like jungles out there. You know,
that male in that pair is just unreal.
Yeah, really incredible. And they remind me more of like something you'd see in the more complete carpet python, you know, something that's more wild looking, you know, more.
Oh, absolutely wild. Actually, do you follow, I can't remember if it was, I think it was Mick Fullerton Wildlife. He's an Australian photographer. He posted up a Tully jungle in Tully in the ambush position. I'll send you the picture. I'll find it. I was like, damn, that is a real Tully jungle, in Tully Gorge. And it looks pretty similar to what Lucas has, you know, just that dirty gold.
Yeah. The yellows and so cool. So how has the breeding season been going for you so far?
Not good. Yeah, this was a real gut punch of a year. Last year I tried my first breeding and I had everything go as absolutely perfect as it could possibly go. I bought my female from Chris Salemi in October, and he's pretty low. He's about an hour from me. So, you know, same climate, same, you know, weather pretty much. And, I was like, it's late in the season. And I was talking to a few people and they were like, just throw them together. Like, you know, see if anything happens. So I quarantined her for a little bit. I think I got her late September and I paired them up December 1st and December 2nd, I walked in and they were locked up. Wow. I was like, okay. So, you know, constantly locked, big swell, like so obvious. I walked in, I was like, that's an ovulation.
Yeah.
And then I decided to do maternal incubation. That went flawlessly. 2 eggs went bad during she actually kicked them out. So I think they were just bad. And, but 100% of the other 8 eggs hatched and got everybody feeding. I had one holdout that I actually got so frustrated with, I just offered up to somebody. I said, take her.
Yeah.
And, so I was feeling real confident coming into the season. And, I had the male that I paired last year with a F1 female, that was produced by Steve Katz that I had gotten from Ish. Really excited for that pairing. I had my Xanthic granite female, to a 100% double het, and then my inlands. And I was like, this is going to be great. Everything went so good last year. And then I paired everybody up and nothing happened. And, constantly I get up so early for work. I get up at about 3:45 in the morning. So I would go into the snake room and look with my red light, and nobody's locked up. Opposite sides of the cage. I'm like, oh, what is going on here? So, I guess about 6 weeks went by. This was early December. About mid-January, I saw my first lock from my wild type pairing, and they were steadily locked up. I was like, okay, different female. She's just going later. I never saw anything from the pos het or the double het to the Xanthic granite, and I never saw anything from my inlands. And I was like, okay. So I see a huge obswell for my F1. I'm like, all right, at least I got something.
Yeah.
I was certain she was gravid. One day I was like, let me see if it's the male or if it's the female on my Xanthic granite. It's like, the worst thing that happens is I end up getting a clutch of double hats. So I took my proven male, put him in with my Xanthic granite. He locked her up in 2 minutes. I was like, okay, so it wasn't a female. So they were steady locked up for a couple weeks, and I was like, all right, I would never do that normally, but I was like, if I get double hats, a clutch of double hats, I know who the father is, and if I get a mix, then maybe the double het got a sneaky one in.
Yeah.
So everybody's going good. Everyone's built, getting bigger. Prelay sheds. My F1 female had her prelay shed, and I'm like counting down. She's huge. Looking at her, and I'm like, okay, we're getting down to 30 days, 20, 28-ish days. And she seemed to get super, super restless. Constantly cruising the cage. And then something just triggered me one day. I was like, I don't know, something doesn't seem right. So I opened up the cage and checked on her, and she was making the sounds of an RI. Like, and I'm like, oh no. This is a Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon, actually. So my nearest reptile vet, there is one nearer to me, but I used them. I didn't really like them at all. I thought they were just using any excuse to do a cash grab. So I checked out on recommendation another one, but it's closer to New York City, which is like an hour from me.
Yeah.
So this is Saturday afternoon. They're closing in 35 minutes. Okay. So I was making the plan on getting in or calling them on Monday. I was watching her. I talked to a couple people, and they're like, are you seeing any mucus, any bubbles? I was like, no, I'm not getting anything. So I pulled her out to check because I wanted to open up her mouth and see if she was getting phlegmy or anything.
Yeah.
So I took her out, and she lit me up. Like,
Mm.
not the behavior from a snake that was like lethargic or seemed sick. So I was like, man, what is going on? Really couldn't do anything with her. She's flailing around. I'm like, this snake is about to drop. Let me just put her back. So I put her back in. This was Saturday afternoon. Bartend on Sundays. So I leave for work at 11 a.m., do a double shift. I get home at almost 10.
Mm-hmm.
Walk into the snake room. She's dead. I was like,
What the hell?
I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I don't know what happened. She had a mouthful of substrate.
Mm.
I was listening to your episode with Kush, and he was talking about egg binding and how like it can go on for months, and
Yeah.
it didn't seem to fit the timeline of egg binding.
Yeah.
But it seemed like she was pushing, like the way her mouth was impacted with substrate.
Mm.
So I don't know if she was trying to get the eggs out, and that's why she was so restless. I would love if somebody who has more experience with this could tell me. And this being 10 o'clock at night after a double shift of on my feet all day, I'm just straight up not even thinking about necropsies or like anything. I'm like freaking out. So I just took her, I put her in a snake bag, and I put her in the freezer just because I was like, the next morning I wake up, I'm like, I should have refrigerated her, if anything, to preserve her, to bring her to the vet.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh my God, if she did have something, you just spoiled your entire group of feeders. Like, so yeah. I'm like, I wish if I was single, I probably would have tried to open her up and see if I could have salvaged the eggs, because this was at about day 32.
Yeah.
But I don't think my wife would have appreciated me dissecting her on the So that was an absolute gut punch, because I was actually more excited for that pairing than my Xanthic Granite pairing. It was my male from last year, which is he's amazing, and just a really, really nice F1. So they were both like really striped. I was just like, oh, these are going to be such nice babies. And to have it like yanked away right there at the end, I honestly, that night I was like, that's it. I'm done. I can't do this. Yeah. So after a day or two, I think I'd spoken to you like right after, because that's when you asked me if I wanted to come on, and I was like, yeah I need a little bit of time.
Yeah, it was bad timing.
I was like, I don't, but it was a good eye opener, because I kind of now have had 6 weeks or so to do a post-mortem, so to speak, on everything, and I realized I'm like, I think I've taken the idea that hands off with your animals is, well, I always operated under the idea that less is more with them. They don't want to be handled, like, just kind of, I thought I was doing like such a great job because I would really not interact with them. I would obviously take them out and check them with cleaning and stuff like that. But I think I knew something was wrong in the days leading up, and I was just like, she's restless because she's getting close to laying. And I learned, I was like, you should have checked that one quicker. Like, you knew in your intuition that something was not right there. Yeah. And so I've kind of learned, like, maybe I've got too many animals for just my lifestyle right now. Yeah. Like, I think I've said to people, we talk about ethics in the hobby a lot, like, cage size and enrichment and all that stuff. But I don't think anybody ever really says, like, maybe I have too many animals. Like, because we're just talking. I would fill a room if I could.
Yeah.
But then being honest with myself, I work full time. I work 2 jobs. I'm averaging 40 to 60 hours a week. And,
Yeah.
I have a 3-year-old and I have a wife who like attention.
Yeah.
I have other hobbies too. And it's like, well, maybe, 25 snakes isn't right for me at this exact moment. And I look back with my dad. I'm like, well, he had 300 snakes. I'm like, yeah, well, my dad honestly didn't really do too much with us. He was down in the snake room a lot. And, you look at other people and you're like, oh, well, Riley's got a ton of snakes and Owen's got a ton of snakes and this person's got a ton of snakes. And it's like, well, Riley doesn't have kids and Owen doesn't have kids. It's like, everyone's situation is different. So you start like comparing yourself to people and you're like, well, maybe it's time to be a little more honest about where you're at in life with your animals. And are you really giving them the care? I feel like I give them great care and, maintenance, but are you really paying attention to your animals? Are you really keyed into what's going on? And last year I was super, super, super focused on the snakes at the detriment of working. I didn't have the second job at the time. I do jujitsu too. So it was like, I wasn't training as much then.
Yeah, that's so much stuff, dude.
Yeah. So that's part of my whole thing with paring down the collection. Like, ultimately, I want to get down to a couple holdbacks and then maybe 10 to 12-ish adult animals. I think that's like my sweet spot for what I can have. And, I want everybody to be in good caging. I want everybody to be, have more than ample room, and I want to be able to just know exactly what's going on with every animal. Like, I think that female was a real wake up call as far as just, if I wasn't so busy, I would have just been like, let me check this out, and so kind of fall on my sword a little bit there. I feel like, whatever happened, I probably could have prevented.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, you did take her out. What do you think you would have done differently had you paid closer attention?
I think it wasn't even that I wasn't paying attention, because, when you have an animal that's close to laying, you're keyed in.
Yeah.
Like, it was just, I was taking that idea. I'm not a person that I've never palpated an animal. Actually, I palpated my inland this year. But prior to that, I've just been very, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. I'll look for visual cues and, let me just stay hands off with them. Like, I really have this like belief that they don't like being interacted with. Like, they'll tolerate it. They'll let you hold them, but I just don't feel like they're, designed, their natural history isn't, this big thing is going to grab me and I'm going to enjoy it. So, especially in a high stress of time, like breeding, I just really always wanted to stay hands off with them. So I think I would have just been more in tune with, hey, I think I remember asking a few people, like, hey, have you ever seen a female get super, super restless, like, before? And I that Saturday, actually, that I noticed the RI sound, I had asked a few people, and they're like, well, snakes don't have diaphragms like we do, so they can't actually regulate their breathing. And, when they get super loaded up with eggs, they are straining to breathe. So I was like, okay, that makes sense. And I think I just would have trusted my intuition 2 or 3 days before that, whereas I know I only had one clutch the year before, and she was pushing and doing nesting behavior like this girl was, but she wasn't all over the cage like my F1 was this year. So having such a small sample size, I was like, maybe this is just a different thing, but it just didn't seem right to me. So I think I would have just trusted that more.
But I mean, would you really have been able to make the decision to make the call to actually like take her out and take her to a vet based off of intuition? Like, it just seems so random. I feel like you're being a little hard on yourself, it really does. I mean, you took her out and she lit you up, which to me, that's always like a sign of good health, right? Like,
right.
They're able to defend themselves and, they're kind of fussy, whereas you take them out and they're a limp noodle and you're like, okay, something's wrong here.
That's what I was expecting. So I think, I don't know, man. This one still keeps me up at night. Like a couple weeks ago, I had buried her in the backyard when I finally got like the strength to go like take her out of the freezer and go dig a hole in the backyard. And I was just like, man, what could I have done differently? But I guess, I'm always going to be hardest on myself. Sure. You're always your own worst critic. So it was a little bit of a revelation and so to speak, come to Jesus moment where I was like, okay, let's just pare it down a little bit. Let's get things more in line with your lifestyle and go from there.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what you could have really done differently there, honestly. And she had a nest box and everything. She was
was completely set up, the black Home Depot tote with the yellow top. I'd cut a hole in the top and filled it up with sphagnum, and she had been in there steady for a couple weeks. She was clearing out, I could hear her rooting around in there and my other female did. And I was fully anticipating a nice, healthy clutch. She was big. So that was a gut punch.
Can you get a necropsy after freezing the animal?
I don't think so. I think they want you to refrigerate them and, try to preserve the tissue. But I think once you freeze them, I could be wrong, but I'd had a snake actually ingest some aspen bedding, baby poplin, and lost them from that. And somebody that I know that's a vet had offered a necropsy. I had already gotten rid of them by that time. I was like, yeah, I know what happened. That was the vet that I took him to. They x-rayed him and they're like, yeah, he's got a piece of bedding in his stomach, so it must have just torn him up. And I was like, yeah, I appreciate the offer. I said in the future, I would take you up on it. And he said, make sure you refrigerate them, you don't freeze them, and then send them. Try to keep them with like cold packs to mail it to them.
Oh, wow.
But I don't think you can actually freeze them.
Okay.
So yeah.
Damn, that's a bummer.
Yeah. So after that, I still never got anything out of my inlands. I just don't know what. I took them down. They were the lowest cages in the room. They got down to the low 60s, which talking to Brandon Wheeler and Nick, they both said they get theirs down to the low 60s. And I at most caught them cuddling in the hide, but never saw a lock from them. And then my Xantha granite swelled and ovulated and had her pre-lay shed. And I was like, okay, hopefully at worst I get a clutch of double hets out of this. And she laid and I got 3 eggs and 2 slugs.
Oh,
so
wow.
it was like, I was like, oh my God.
Wow.
But the eggs are doing well. They're at, I think they're at like day 30 something. I actually just checked on them yesterday. They're in the incubator in my basement. And they look like the day they were hatched. I candled them. There's nice veins. You see little embryos in there. So fingers crossed that I can get at least something out of this season besides pain and experience.
Yeah, pain and suffering.
Yeah, she rebounded well. She actually scared me she did not want to eat, and she was a ravenous feeder, and she looked terrible for 3 eggs and 2 slugs. She looked worse than my female that I did MI with last year. And, but finally, after about a week, she took. So she's back on food. She's in shed now. And, yeah, I got a couple eggs cooking and some plans for next year.
Nice. So what made you decide to go the artificial incubation this year rather than MI?
Just doing MI last year, I was like, all right, let me try artificially incubating a clutch and let me see. And plus, I wanted to breed her again next year. I have a different double het male that's super, super nice coming up that'll be ready next year that I want to pair her to. So I was like, okay, let me get her back on food as quick as possible, rebounded, and hopefully produce some xanthic granites next year.
How was the experience of maternal incubation?
It was awesome. It was so cool. It's something I will definitely do again. I was like, let me just try it for my first clutch. You know, if it goes bad, you know, I'll try artificial in the future. But just to see her, you know, I know that they say that the most carpets don't actually generate heat with the shivering, but you know, seeing her doing that twitching and the shivering was really cool. She was always on those eggs. I don't think that snake drank for.
Wow.
She had to have, but I had moved the water bowl close to the edge of the hide that she was in, and I never saw her off the eggs until probably about 2 weeks before before the eggs hatched. I would occasionally catch her on the camera that I had set up on the cage. It would detect motion, and I would catch her out, kind of just cruising the cage. But I was expecting her to come out, bask, gain some heat, and then go back to the eggs. But she would just kind of cruise around the cage a little bit, and then maybe 5 minutes total I would see on the video of her off the eggs. I like equated to she was just out for a stretch.
Yeah.
And then went back onto the eggs, and she stayed on there. It was crazy. I mean, I would put less than an hour of time that she was off those eggs for 60 days. They hatched on day 60.
Damn.
And
did you offer her food?
I never offered her food. I was always worried about her pooping on the eggs, because I've heard other people say that, and I was like, she seemed like she had really good body condition going into it, so I figured she would be fine. And she just did awesome. You know, wrapped them tight, kicked out the 2 eggs that ultimately never. I put them in the incubator. They never did anything. I opened them up after the other eggs hatched, and they didn't even really have developed embryos in them, so they must have been bad from the start.
How soon did she kick those out?
First day.
Oh, wow.
For first and second day. There was one egg it was weird. There was the main egg pile, and then there was one egg that was kind of at like a 45, and she never covered it. And I'd ask people, they're like, well, see if you could separate it and just kind of pull her back and put it on top. And so I did that. And the next morning I came in and it was off to the side again. And then later that afternoon, there was another one that was off to the side that had never adhered to the pile. So I don't know if she knew it was bad. It was weird.
They have to know.
It's wild. Like the intuition that they had, that those 2 eggs, you know, and the incubator's on the same parameters that I have 3 eggs cooking in right now. That, you know, same egg box, same everything. So I don't think it was the incubator conditions, and she knew. Yeah.
I don't know. To me, it seems like she just that must be programmed into them. I don't know. They must know.
It's so wild. And then my Xantha Granite this year, for contrast, I came home from work, I looked in, I saw a little bit of white, and I was like, oh, she's laying. And I could hear her moving around. I'm like, okay, she's still going. So I went outside and mowed the lawn. I gave it like 3 hours, and I opened it up again, and I was like, she wasn't coiled on them. She was just kind of like draped over them. And I was like,
Yeah.
Weird. So I opened the hide up, and I pulled her off, and I looked, and I saw the 3 eggs and the 2 slugs, and I'm like, did she not cover them or wrap them nice because she knew they were no good? And then I candled them, and I could see veins. I'm like, okay, I don't know if the slugs threw her off, where she was like, these aren't any good. But but they're doing great. So knock wood.
Nice. So she wasn't really interested in incubating those?
That thing's a little weird. She's a little jaggy, which she's not a jag, but I've heard other people say that the granites, with their history of inbreeding depression, can get a little weird. And to get a double visual combo like that, you got to do a lot of inbreeding in there. So I think she's a little neurally. She doesn't handle quite normal. She's a little like loopy. So I think she was just not mentally all there. So if I do get double hets out of this outcross double hets, I think wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to add some fresh blood into that project too.
Yeah. Would you keep all 3 of them?
I'm going to keep them. Yeah. Just for this season, it's like those will be the only 25 babies I have. So I'll just grow them on, and we'll see what comes of it. I hope, there's still always the possibility of, bad things. So knock wood that they're healthy, normal, non-kinked, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I kind of have a little bit of a theory too. I've heard other Northeast breeders talking about how they're not having a great year this year. So I kind of think we're all on the same boat, because we had a massive drought up here from probably late July until mid-October. We didn't have any rain. And that's heading into the breeding season. And if these animals are as cued into the outside conditions as we think they are, and I do believe they are, why would they produce a ton of offspring if they weren't going into it with a solid hydration, and if they're getting cues from the external world that things aren't kosher, then why would they drop a ton of eggs? And it seems like a lot of the Northeast breeders are getting bad clutches, slugs. Everybody said everything went late this year. I just think the animals were cued in that things weren't just 100% up to snuff. And then you see the West Coast breeders who had a ton of rain this year. Everybody's killing it. So,
Lucas Lee is on fire right now, dude. He's got like 2 diamond clutches, the Priceline clutch. He's got Eastern
Brettles.
Indigos. He's got Brettles.
The original Hypo Brettles founder, female today. Jesus. I saw it. Yeah.
He's out of control.
Ben Nicholson in the middle of the country is having a hell of a year. So.
Yep. Ish had that video that he posted up in the Discord, and with the little baby pipping out. Did you see that? That was cool. That was cool.
I will never forget that. Coming home, and I was like, man, this is day 60, and these babies got to be coming soon. So I have one of the big XXL hides that I use for my lay boxes. And I lifted it up, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw the quickest little movement of the baby's head retracting back into the egg. And I was like, and then I could see another one that was still sticking out. I'm like, oh my God, they're here. And I did manage to get the cool shot of her, loosened up with a couple little heads popping out. That is like, if you're going to breed, I think at any point someone has to do MI just to see that. Like, how many times are you going to look in an incubator and catch them just, at that exact moment?
Yeah.
So that was super cool.
I'm definitely going to do MI with my boas for sure. The boas will get MI.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to do artificial with them. It would be messy.
Yeah, it's
how far off are you on your first pairings?
I don't know. I'm going to feel it out. I don't want to rush into anything. I want to make sure that whatever I pair up is going to be really matured, sexually, not just, size requirement. I want to make sure that they're where they need to be. I'm in no hurry to put anything together. So I'm going to just kind of feel it out as I go along.
Nice. Are your first animals going to be boas or pythons?
I don't know. Maybe. I'm assuming it's probably going to be spotted pythons and.
Oh yeah, they're only about 3 years, right, or 2 years?
Yeah. They go pretty quick. Young, so I'm going to feel that out. It could potentially be spotted. It could be Argentine boas. But yeah, just gotta take it as it comes, and like nice. I said, I'm in no hurry. I don't need to breed my animals. I appreciate them. And I know that I'm going to really appreciate getting babies when I get them, so
yeah,
I'm just trying to really resist that urge to think like next year is going to be the year, I'm just taking it as it comes.
It is cool, the excitement, the anticipation going into that, especially the first breeding season. But this current season was cool. Just like, it's like, all right, I did it last year, so now I know what to do, and everything went well. And I'm still excited for next year. I honestly think I'm only going to do one pairing next year. I'm going to try. I have a Posset female. From that original group that I got from Nick. No, I lied. I'm doing two. Because I'm going to breed my Xanthogranite. But I have a Posset female that I want to see. I will never sell that snake. She's awesome. I love her. I don't even care if she doesn't prove out. Like, if she's just a really cool wild type, I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah. What did damn, I totally lost my question. Shit, I wrote it down. You were talking about the whole drought thing, kind of unrelated. But that was my question, and then I got to write down the drought, or I'm going to forget about that. So, how many pairings did you have this year?
I had three. Three of my own. Actually, I in the fall had was talking to Ryan Spellman, Spellman Serpents, and he had Novas, and he had actually a really nice pair of Poplins. So we would always talk about the Poplins, and I had always wanted the Novas. I ended up buying a pair in the fall, late summer, fall last year. I have a pair of 24s on the Nova Guineas, and then what was maybe 2 weeks after I bought the pair, a 2020 or 2019 female popped up on Morph Market. And Ryan had messaged me. He's like, oh, there's a really nice female on Morph Market. I was like, yeah, I saw her. I was like, wait, you have male Novas that are of breeding age. I was like, what if I bought her and sent her to you? So he was like, yeah, I would do that. So I ended up buying her and just had her direct shipped to him. And nice. I was like, yeah, I did the same thing last year. I got her late and fed her up a little bit and threw my mail in there, and he did the same thing. And they took. I feel like my bad luck rubbed off on him this year. He messages me. The babies are due to be laid any time now. We just had these massive thunderstorms. He's in central Pennsylvania near State College, and Penn State University, and they got these massive thunderstorms that ripped through the area, knocked out power. He goes, dude, she's due to lay today, and I have no power. I'm like, shit. Oh my God. He's like, it's fine. It's like 60s here, 60s, 70s during the day, but it's getting down to 40s at night. And the house is cold. Like, so I was like, well, he had a couple short tail clutches about a month before that. I'm like, well, what are you doing for your short tails? He's like, well, I have the incubator running on a solar backup power. I was like, throw her in the egg box in the incubator. It's like we were like brainstorming stuff. I'm like, well, maybe you could put her by a window to warm up and try to, keep her as cool as possible. Like put blankets around the tub or whatever. And so we're going through all these things, and then I was like, well, what's your incubator at? He's like, oh, it's 87 degrees. I'm like, throw her in the incubator.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't know if it's going to stress her out too much. I'm like, well, she could freeze. Yeah. So he put her in the incubator in her nest box, and she laid that night. Right. But she only laid 4 eggs. Oh. So it was like, oh my God, this season is just cursed.
Was he like putting her in and then taking her out, or was he just putting her in and leaving her in there?
No, he just put her in there and left her in there.
Oh shit! Yeah, that would have scared the shit out of me. Jeez.
Yeah, he was like, "I'm nervous about this." I mean, she was in the enclosed box, on sphagnum, and it's. And
you got to figure she was probably already pretty cool, So
yeah, and 87 degrees. I told him, I said, I kept the radiant heat panel above the nest box of my female last year was in at 88. So, he goes, I think you might have unlocked the secret for, actually, I think she was past due. I think she was at like day 34. Huh. He's like, oh, an incubator, dark, quiet, warm, and she laid. So, but it only ended up with 4 eggs out of that. So I've got that, or half. I've got 2 eggs out of that coming. Yeah. Also.
And how old is she?
Either a 19 or a 19 or a 20. I think a 2020. Okay. And when he got her, he's like, dude, she's small. Yeah. I'm like, oh. I was like, well, like how small? He's like, pretty small. I was like, well, Nova's just smaller than Poplins. He's like, yeah. He's like, I mean, she has good body condition. He's like, she's just small. And then when he sent me pictures of her on the eggs, I was like, oh shit, she's small. Like, oh wow, she's probably the size of my maybe a little bit bigger than my 22 female. Wow. So I was like, oh, she's real small. So I think she's gonna come back here, and I have the 24 male, so I'll skip a year, put some size on her, and then breed her in 26.
So how many are you at right now?
Oh God.
27.1800.
No. I'm quick count. Damn, I should have prepped this one.
Oh, that's all right.
I'm probably at like 2, 3. Probably at like 5.8.
Oh, okay. So you've already kind of slimmed down a lot.
Yeah, I've pared down a lot. I'm going to keep my jungles. I'm going to sell the inlands. and then I'm going to really just kind of focus on the Xanthic Granite project until I see that through. I moved off of, not by choice, because I really, once I produce the Xanthic Granites, I'm going to keep a pair of those, or a combination of maybe my pos head if she proves out, or something. But I want to really move into wild types and just stay with the wild type Hopwins, and then kind of get a pair of wild type Darwins, not albino, not the albino line. Nick had some for sale this year, and I think Casey Lazick had some non-albino Darwins. I really just want a pair of head for nothing wild type Darwins.
Yeah.
I went to Carpet Fest last year and saw Eric Burke's Cape Yorks, and I really want Cape Yorks. They kind of actually look like inlands a little bit, pattern wise, and I was like, all right, I'm going to do the variegata thing, the whole gelatins, Cape Yorks. That'll be the end goal after I do the Xanthic Granite project. I'll keep that and keep a pair or a trio of them, and then move on to some other stuff. But just stay in that wheelhouse and play around with the native wild type jungles. Like the pair I have from Riley are really not your typical jungle look. You know, they're not banded. They're striped. They got that ocelotting. They're super tipped out.
Yeah.
You know, they're not like super yellow. They're developing nicely, but they're not like neon highlighter yellow. They look like real old school jungles. They have a lot of the Vandevetter lineage in them. He gave me the lineage chart for that pairing is just insane. It's like everything. Wow. Vandevetter, Python Pete. I didn't know Justin Julander was into jungles back in the day, like back in the lineages, some AAR jungles. Wow. So yeah. And you know, I just like the real wild type looking jungles. So I inadvertently took a detour into jungles, which I was never really a jungle guy, but I guess I am now.
Yeah. Yeah, I the whole wild type thing is kind of growing on me more and more. I think because it just simplifies the choices that you have to make. You know, like for me, I like, if I go get ice cream, I want it to either be like chocolate or vanilla. I don't want 39 different options. You know, I want it to be easy. And so, you know, the whole morph scene is not for me. I think just because of that, because I just kind of, it's like I end up just banging my head on a brick wall, because I'm like, yeah, I like that, but I like this one too, and I like this one, and I like that one. Okay, so I've narrowed it down to 26 of the 150 morphs that are out there, and I don't know which ones I want. You know, I can't get all 26 of them. You know,
and I feel like it kind of devalues it a little bit too, because it's like, well, do you like the animals as much if it's not the morph that you want? Like,
yeah.
And they're so amazing as they're made. Like, they got the name carpet pythons because they look like, their patterning looks like an oriental carpet. Like, they're just so vibrant and so, you know, diverse and so unique. You know, each animal is so different. I don't feel like you really need to add the morphs to it. As I say, I'm going to keep working my Xanthic Granite project, but at least that's a pure morph project. You know, it's you had naturally occurring granites and you have naturally occurring Xanthics. So
yeah,
I just think that particular combo is awesome. So that's what I'm working towards. But I would just be so stoked if that F1 clutch had hatched. I would have prized those animals more. Like that. Sure. That was what I was really looking forward to this year.
Yeah, I just pulled the trigger on some Timor locality Maclots, and
I saw that in the Discord.
Yeah, I'm super stoked for that. And the fact that, I mean, they're coming from Dennis McNamara, who is just, such a goat on top of it. And, so yeah, I'm just like, I'm so excited, I'm so excited for those. Like, I feel like, it's like wild type is cool. And then once you get into like locality, that's even cooler. Like it's like the more zeroed in it gets, I find that to be cooler and cooler now, and I like line bred animals too. I really like my martyr line, blood pythons and, yeah, it's, and like I have the spotted pythons that are, genetic stripe. And so the two females have the genetic stripe, and then the male is genetic stripe as well. But he's a lot more broken up, which I'm actually happy about, so visually he looks just more like a regular spotted python, but I'd like to get just a plain spotted python at some point in time to add to that. Maybe go to 2.2.
I refuse to open the Antaresia door because
oh, they're so cool.
Ben Nicholson's been in my ear. He's like, you need Antaresia. You need Antaresia. I'm like, I know. But he's like, they're small,
Yeah. And they're active too. I mean, I like to observe my animals. I like watching them. That's, the big reason why I keep them. And finally taking her out of her tub, like once I knew she was big enough to not fit between like the little crack veins, here. Yeah. And once she was big enough to actually go into an enclosure, she's like got to be one of my most active snakes. She's always cruising and looking around, and it's
who was on that was saying that they had Antaresia slip out in the track and then climb into a Crebo cage. Was that your?
Oh, that was Kenny. Yeah. Kenny Gall.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
The worst possible spot you could possibly go to.
Yeah. What did he get too? What kind of Antaresia was that? I can't remember now. Was it a children's?
Pygmy or a children's? I think it was a children's.
Yeah.
I was listening to that. I was like, oh my God.
I know. Could you imagine stupid little Antaresia going into a Crebo cage?
Where's and you would never have known where it went.
Yeah, I know. It's terrifying. I mean, my jungle just got out, and I found her accidentally. I had no idea she got out. But she's so small that she got out from between this crack between the two pieces of acrylic.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was changing waters before we got on. Or before I helped my wife with her flat tire, and then got on, but I went into one of the blood tubs and I changed out the cup and put fresh water in, and I go to push it in, and I'm like, it's like hitting something, and I'm like, I must be pushing the tub in like at an angle, and I'm like, and I like jam it in, and I'm like, wait a minute, something's messed up, like it must be the heat tape or something, and I pull it out, and she's at the back like, please stop doing that.
I had the same thing happen with my inland female.
Really?
So I have the cages with the clickable vent holes. And you can also snake like a thermostat wire in.
Sure.
And I opened it up to max ventilation, but I didn't realize I opened it up past the latch point.
Oh shit.
So she's super active, especially at night. So she popped the vent out and crawled out, and the same exact thing. I came home from work and the top tub in the rack was out maybe like 3/4 of an inch. And I was like, I really figured, I have a 3-year-old daughter. I figured she was in there with my wife, because we use the closets in the third room where the snakes are for our spare storage. And I figured she was in there with my wife getting ready in the morning. And she likes to say hi to daddy snakes. So I thought maybe she pulled the tub open.
Yeah.
And I did the same thing. I went to close it and it was bumping. And I'm like, what is this hitting? I pulled the tub out and my inland is on the heat tape in the back.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God. So this, so I have two crazy snake stories. So this one, that had happened, which wasn't that crazy. That was just carelessness. That inland the week before, I had run LED lighting in the cage. And stupidly, I took some black, like gaffer's tape, Gorilla tape, and adhered. I wanted to clean up the wiring, but it was late. It was getting close to the timers going off. So I was like, let me just throw some tape up in this corner and keep the wiring up so she doesn't get tangled up in it and go about my way. Well, the next morning I said I get up at 3:45 for work. So I go into the room to get my work clothes and I'm looking at the cage. I do my check with the red light headlamp and I see her on the floor of the cage, all twisted up. I'm like, oh my God, she's dead. And then I click the actual light of the headlamp on. No, she's twisted up in the tape. I'm like, oh my God, I put a glue trap into the cage. My own snake. I'm sitting there on the floor of my room, like peeling her skin and scales back off of the tape for like 35 minutes and, pulled some scales off. 2 sheds later, she was fine, but I was like, do not ever put anything external that they can get into or under in a cage ever again. It's those hard lessons that you learn where you just like, oh man.
Yeah. Just FYI, if anybody's listening to this, mineral oil takes that adhesive right off of scales. So even if like you have a glue trap and you accidentally catch a snake on it, you can use mineral oils to get them off.
Didn't even think of that. Yeah. I was actually considering, I always knew, you could get glue residue off with, Skin So Soft from Avon, but I don't even know. I wasn't going to wake my wife up at 3:45 and be like, do you have Skin So Soft? She'd be like, what am I, 80?
Honey. I have to go to work.
That was interesting. It was funny as I was like thinking about doing this podcast. I had told you my dad had snakes when I was younger. So he told me one time, he comes to me, he goes, I just got my license. So I was 17.
Yeah.
He goes, you got to go to LaGuardia and pick up some snakes for me at the airport at Delta Dash. And I was like, okay. I was like, why don't you go? He's like, because I have to go to work. And don't tell your mother that you got these. He goes, just put them in the boiler room when you get home. I was like, okay. So I print out the MapQuest directions to LaGuardia because this is probably 1997. And get in my Mazda 626 and I drive into LaGuardia from Eastern Long Island. And I hand the guy the paperwork and stuff, and he goes, okay. He goes, pull your truck around. I was like, I don't have a truck. I said, I got a Mazda. He's like, well, this crate's pretty big. I'm like,
crate?
Yeah. That's how they shipped stuff. Delta Dash back in the day. It was in
holy
crate.
Shit.
This was 2 9-foot Burmese pythons.
Oh, jeez.
So I don't think my dad realized what they were. What it was being shipped in. So they did eventually, they shipped them in sweater boxes, but they were inside the crate because that was the way you had to ship stuff, Delta Dash, back in the day, in a wooden crate. So the guy gives me a dolly, and I bring the snakes out to the curb, and I'm trying to put this crate into my car. And I'm like twisting it, and I'm moving the seats up, and so a porter from the airport comes up, and he's like, "Oh, you need help?" And I was like, "Yeah." So we're twisting it around, and he's like really pushing. I'm like, "Well, just be easy. I was like, don't. I was like, there are animals in here, and he's like, what kind of animals? I said, well, there's 2 snakes in here. That dude dropped that crate and ran down the sidewalk of the airport.
Jeez.
So eventually I went into Delta Dash. I asked them for a crowbar, and I opened the crate up, and they were in, secured boxes. So I just put those in the car. But yeah, that was my other outrageous snake story.
What kind of berms were they?
Those were actually albinos.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think he got those from the Barkers, now that I think about it. But these were albinos when albinos were still pretty rare. Like, They weren't that. Maybe it was even. Maybe they were. I think they were albino greens, because he got the original pair of albinos that we had when I was still in middle school. So that would have been 91 or 92. And I came home from a school field trip, like an overnight field trip. And my room had been, before he moved everything to the basement, we had like a foyer area in the upstairs of our house. And he had, when the collection was small enough to stay in that area, it was in the foyer of the upstairs and then into my room. So I walked into my room and immediately noticed that there were 2 sweater boxes in there that weren't there when I had left the day before or 2 days before. And I was like, what's in there? So I look and I saw the albino berms, and I was like, oh my God, it's albino Burmese pythons.
Wow.
But they were, I don't even know how he paid for them. Like they were still probably $5,000 a piece.
Wow.
Back then, like they were up there. Yeah. So
what was he keeping these giant snakes in?
So, I've seen the evolution of, the way snakes used to be kept, in 200-gallon fish tanks, with bricks on the top. And, you look back at it now and you're like, oh my God, that was terrible. But that's what they didn't know. You didn't know about, hides and thermostats. We had a giant, like 12-foot wild type berm in like a 250-gallon aquarium in the middle of the basement. Yep. Yeah. So I've seen, I had a long gap out of it, but I was convinced I was going to be a herpetologist when I was in middle school and early high school. And, I sometimes I'm like, oh, well, I don't have a ton of experience. I've only been in it for 3 years. And I'm like, well, what about those 10 years when you were 13, or 8 years from like 13 to 20? I worked with snakes a lot then. I was the cleaner, the maintenance guy, my dad would joke around. He's like, you never get bit. I always get bit. I was like, well, I'm the snake whisperer. What do you want?
What else did he have? Did he have any lizards or anything, or crocodilians?
No crocodilians. No, he never got into lizards. I think he had leopard geckos for a little while when they were still kind of newish. We did have a big outdoor pond. He had a bunch of turtles out there. I was actually working on a summer job, tearing out an old, like stacked stone wall and near a house that was backed up to a pond, and found a bunch of alligator snapper eggs.
Oh, wow.
So I put them in actually put them in my lunchbox and brought them home, and we buried them in the backyard right near the pond, and they hatched. And
oh, wow.
One day we came out and there were no more goldfish in the pond. But there were like 5 baby alligator snappers.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, we had obviously had dogs. My dad was breeding rats for all the snakes. He had the 2 massive freshwater fish tanks. We had rabbits. you know, it was, my mom would joke around. She's like, yeah, I live in fucking wild America.
Man, that's a crazy way to grow up. I mean, like a lot of people weren't into keeping snakes.
Oh, it was, so I always try to keep, you know, I have my own personal Instagram page, and then I have the Oceania Exotics page. And, you know, I guess I'm kind of like still stigmatized, like, because I remember people being like, oh, your dad has snakes, you know, but like, it's definitely gotten way more mainstream now.
Oh, yeah.
Than it used to be. But I know people still don't like them, so I never force it on anybody. I try to keep like the separation between my own, personal page and then, you know, the snake. So occasionally I'll get like a like from or a follow from one of my friends. I'm like, hey, you found it.
Yeah.
I just force all my personal friends to just deal with jiu-jitsu stuff, so. Because that's not weird.
The drought.
Oh yeah.
Thinking about that, I went out herping in the Everglades to see Burmese pythons, and we didn't see a goddamn one.
Really?
And yeah, we drove 750 miles, something like that. And you know, I mean, start to finish, but I mean, I'm only 35 minutes from where there's Burmese pythons. So, you know, or where they've been seen. So we were hitting it the first day before the sun even went down in areas where there could potentially, be berms. And, we went out numerous times, and we ended up talking to a guy that was working at the Flamingo boat ramp down in the Everglades in the park. And we were like, yeah, have you seen any? And he's like, no, we got the crocodiles right now are gravid, and they're looking for nesting sites, and they had signs out, crocodiles crossing road. And he said that somebody hit one going like 55, and there was just eggs everywhere. Yeah, it's terrible. Like, how do you even hit a crocodile? You know, like, how do you?
Well, my sister lives kind of near you. She's up in St. Pete.
Okay.
And when she moved down there, she texted me one morning. She goes, you know, we live on Long Island, and there's roadkill deer here everywhere. And she goes, I don't think I'm ever going to get used to seeing roadkill or alligators. You know, she's like, I almost hit one doing 50.
Yeah. I've been going down the interstate, and like you see them like coming out towards the highway, and it's like, no, what are you doing? You know, and it's this 5-6 foot alligator, you know, and it just doesn't care, and it's just like, I got to get over there, you know, but yeah, when we were talking to the security guard, he said that he hadn't seen a berm since like last year. Once the rain stopped and everything dried up, he said that areas that are normally like bog and marsh were bone dry, and that everything was just super dry, which is crazy because last rainy season was just like one of the craziest rainy seasons we've ever had, where it was.
When does your like rainiest times of the year down there go from? Like this time to September?
It usually kicks off in June. Yeah. And then it's going to go all the way till probably mid-October.
Well, through the hurricane season. Yeah.
Yep. And I mean, the amount of times we had like, you know, once in every 100-year storms, and, you know, these crazy flooding events. And then, you know, in addition to the hurricanes, it was a very wet year last year.
Well, did you guys got a cold winter too, right?
Yeah.
North of you had snow.
It was, yeah, I guess it was pretty cold. Yeah. It's like,
I wonder.
Well, and then they had the hurricanes and the flooding up in the mountains. You know,
up in
like,
North Carolina.
Yeah. It's I don't know what is going on with the weather. It's really crazy.
Yeah, I really feel like the the drought here impacted things negatively. I mean, Ish said he had a down season. Listening to NPR, they both said they've had down seasons. I haven't really talked to too many other people in the area, and this could be completely anecdotal, but it just, I mean, we did not have a drop of rain probably from almost the end of July until mid-October. I mean, my lawn looked like a vacant lot.
Wow.
It was super dry, and I don't think it's a coincidence that we're experiencing a down year on the East Coast.
Yeah. I'll be curious to see if it'll be, another wet summer, and then hopefully it'll be, we won't have this kind of flooding into drought season. It's kind of annoying.
We keep screwing, I hate the fact that global warming has turned into a political thing. Not to get political, but it's like you can believe certain things and still admit, like, the weather's not what it used to be. I remember being a kid and getting winter here. We haven't had a snowstorm of note in years in New York. We get way more hurricanes in the past 5 years. It's like, let's just accept, like, things are changing.
I wish that could be if there was one thing that we could all get behind and be bipartisan on. I wish that it would be that.
You would think it would be something where you would get consensus, because we all have to live here. Like, it's, you can talk about economics and you can talk about, your views on different things, but it's like, we all got to stay here. So, like, why don't we try to, make this as habitable as we possibly can?
Wouldn't it be nice to have a place where we can not die from heat exhaustion and then, get or flooded out?
Growing up on Long Island, we had Hurricane Gloria in 1986, and then we didn't have anything until Sandy.
Mm-hmm.
And then since Sandy, we've had multiple hurricanes come through. It's like, you're going from 2012 when Sandy came through to 25. We've probably had 6, and we had a gap between Gloria and Sandy where there was nothing. It's like, something's up, guys. Category 5s were pretty rare for a while there.
Yeah, I remember, I haven't seen very many pictures of, like, crazy snow from my family up on Long Island in a while. I remember seeing like decks covered with snow and, like, multiple feet up the back glass sliding door, and, like, those crazy images. I haven't seen those in a while.
The last, like, mega snowstorm I can remember is, I actually think it was the March after Sandy. We got absolutely mollywopped. It was like a 3-foot storm. And that was the last real big one that I can remember. And
I was up there
I haven't
for
had a snow day at work in 4 years.
See, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
And you know what? 4 years ago, actually, let me see. Let me try to do the math here. It must have been like, I think I was up there like 7 years ago when my grandfather passed away, and he was laid to rest at Calverton, and I wore Converse. Like, I flew up there in, like, Converse, and I remember, like, trying to go to a store wearing Converse and then wearing, like, dress shoes out at the National Cemetery with the snow coming down and being like, I hate this. I hate snow.
I mean, we get cold. It was cold here this winter, like, real cold. We got down to single digits for probably a good 2-week stretch.
Oof.
But no snow. So we get all the shitty parts, but none of the fun. Like, I like a nice fresh snowfall. So, and allegedly that's your greatest trigger for breeding snakes. The low
pressure
pressures.
changes.
Like, I installed the barometer app on my phone. Like when I wasn't seeing any action at the beginning of December, I was checking that barometer. I'm like, oh, 3 days from now, I'm going to get a low coming through. And, that morning I'd be in there checking and didn't see anything. So I haven't been able to put that theory to the test because we just haven't had those fronts coming through and kicking it off. Like, pair them up when it's. I was trying to do it on rain, and I just guess it doesn't give you enough of that low to really trigger anything.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Yeah, I'd be really curious to see some data from people that have like maybe tracked that. I wonder maybe if Eric and Owen have really like put in some information on when they were getting locks at what pressure.
So I went back last year to actually to track through NOAA what last January, December, January was to pair up with my pictures and check when I like saw locks. I'm like, okay, what was the pressure here? And it was all pretty much the same pressure that I was seeing where I wasn't getting any action this year. I think that drought just pushed everything back later because like once we got into January and we started getting consistently cooler temps, and then I just think they just started cycling, and nature took over at that point. They didn't really care what was going on with the barometric pressure, but the follicular growth was just cueing those males in where they couldn't resist anymore.
Yeah, it would be interesting to get more data on that, and I guess I should probably track that. It'd be interesting to start tracking that now and see what happens when a storm rolls through. And
I did try to take more like detail. I was doing everything with like pictures last year, and I wasn't really cueing into the weather. So I tried, after I realized by about mid-January, I'm like, let me start trying to keep track of the weather. So I was jotting down notes with the weather when I would see locks. So again, it's a small sample size. So going forward, it's going to be something I'm going to make a point to try to keep track of. Yeah,
for sure.
Speaking of weather, how are your diamonds doing outside?
Oh, they're doing great. I've got the two girls out there, and it's wild. I mean, the temperatures are a lot higher than I anticipated. That's for damn sure. I mean, temp gunning the branches and things that they would go up on are like 105 surface temperature, which is it's a lot higher than I thought it was going to be. I imagine stone would get that hot. But I mean, stone must be incredibly hot, any rock or anything that's absorbing all that sunlight, it's gotta just be intensely hot for a wood branch that's in a screened in patio inside of a screened in enclosure to be that hot, but they seem to be doing great. The one female, they both cruise all night long. They both sit there in their stalking positions like all night long. And then the one goes into a log, into a cork round at some point. I don't know when she does, but by the time I go out there, she's in there as deep as she can go, as far back in there. And the other female lays out on the branch and waits for the sun to come up. And once the sun gets intense, then she goes down into her cork log.
It's so funny how you can kind of pattern your animals. Like I just see it even inside with where they do something different. You're like, oh, that's unusual, but they all have the same pattern. Like I know I'll go in and check before I go to bed, and this snake's cruising, this snake's cruising, this snake's cruising. That one's always in ambush position. And then when I go in the morning, I'm like, that one's always in the hide. This one's still cruising around, And then if you see something different, you're like, oh, I haven't seen that one in 2 days. It's in the shed, It's like, but what do you use to track your ambience? Do you use Gobies or?
Not on the outside enclosures. I should throw one inside some of the cork hollows. I'm worried that I'm going to put one out there and it's going to dump buckets of rain and I'm just going to fry the Govie, you know?
So they, I'll send you the link after this. I had the previous model Wi-Fi Gobies and they sucked when you would like either miss the cage or I tried using it in the incubator last year and it crapped out after a couple days with like the water. They released an upgraded version, and I've had the upgraded version in the egg box in the incubator at 99% humidity for 2 months now, and it's been great. So I'll send you the link for that. That was always my biggest complaint, and they also upgraded the battery. It's bigger, so it takes a AA battery now instead of the AAAs that the other ones would always burn out. So I'm very happy with those.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of like the little kind of rectangular shaped ones that take the AAA.
Okay, yeah. Those are the ones I had, and they suck.
Yeah, they're not. I know that because I've put them in tubs before, and they kind of crap out pretty quick. So I definitely don't want to put one of those outside. It would be interesting to get more of the ambient data. I got to get a stonemason out to, glue all my blocks together and, stick those all together. And that way I can put my cage up on top of it. I still have to coat the cage. I have to put mesh on the cage, and I'm going to be getting the adult male in like 1 week. So that's not looking great. I have no idea what I'm going to do with him when I get him. I don't know. Maybe like
a full, like 5 foot.
I'm not sure. He's got to be at least 4 or 5 foot. He's
adult male carpet. Yeah.
Yeah. I think he's a 21 or a 22.
Okay.
So yeah, he's coming. So I gotta be ready for that. I'm a little concerned that I'm not prepared.
Well, as somebody who did landscaping and masonry for years, if you're confident that you could disassemble those blocks, you could just get a caulk gun and get some PL, the landscape adhesive. They sell it at Home Depot. Just pull them off, just run a bead of caulk or the PL, the glue on the bottom of them, and then just reset them and they'll stick. Like they're, it's not, if you're reasonably handy and you can just take it apart and put it back together in order, then you could just glue it yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I bought all the blocks and I just put them out there and kind of got an idea of it. The problem is that I didn't realize this until after the fact. The dimensions of the blocks are shorter than what they actually are to allow for the
offset for the back, right? Like how it tapers.
Yeah, and the what's the word I'm looking for the not concrete, but for the concrete to go between all the joints, So like as soon as I realized that, I was like, shit, this isn't going to fit now, because I built my cage to be 6x3, and so it's a little shy of 3 feet wide. So I need that all the gaps filled in, So I got a quote. I just got to get the guy out and get it done,
Yeah,
but
I've done that before too. Buy something and I'm like, where am I going to put this?
yeah, I know. It's So I'm picking him up at at Tampa Repticon. So when I go out there, I don't know, maybe I should just get another ReptiBreeze enclosure and stick them in there temporarily.
Yeah,
I mean
it's so I took my proven male out yesterday. I put pictures up on my Instagram story, and I pulled him out, and I'm like, damn, you got bigger. Like, it's crazy. They just pop all of a sudden. Like he was always, he's a 21 also, but I just grabbed him and just the muscle, like how strong he felt. It's like, yeah, you got to get upgraded soon. Like, I was planning on just keeping him in a 3-footer, and I'm like, no, you got to go to a 4-footer. And I've tried. He gets breeder male feeding schedule, and it's just one of those snakes that just like grows and grows.
Yeah,
it's like you got to stop growing, bro.
Yeah. So what is your preferred cage size for carpets? 4x2x2?
4x2x2. Yeah, I would love to go bigger. But I don't think they're like cramped, especially Popwins. You know, they're on the smaller side. I think my inland and my Popwin adult females are probably my inland's about 4 foot. Okay. I think my Popwin female is smaller than that, just slightly shy of 4. The Xanthic Granite's even shorter than that. I think she's probably like 3.5, maybe give or take, but she's the thickest of all of them. Yeah, so they're all in 4x2x2s, and then I was planning on keeping my males in 3x2x2s, and that male is just outgrowing it. I'm like, yeah, you got to come out.
What's your preferred cage? Like what company do you go to?
So I've just got the the Reptile basics ones right now. The glass front, the screen top. I like the screen top because I like using lights for my heat source on the adults. And I have the light hoods in between them, like you have. And you know, what my plan was this season, if things went well with all the clutches, that I was going to either order. I've had my eye on the boa file cages.
Oh yeah.
I think they're really nice. Yeah, I see Gary Shavino has those in his videos, and I just like the aesthetic of them. And they're reasonable he sells the combos. You know, you get 4x2x2s all stacked up. I think they're like $2,000 for 2,800. Nice. So that was my plan for this year, but it looks like that's going to have to get pushed back for a year.
Yeah.
But no, everybody's content for now. You know, I got my holdbacks and grow ups in the 35s through V70s. And I hate keeping them in racks, but for a baby carpet to be in a V35, they're doing fine. You know?
Yeah. It's, I mean, and it's temporary too. I mean, it's, I don't like the idea of, I can't stand the idea of keeping an adult carpet in a tub, you know, like they're just not, in my opinion, they're just not built for it. You know, like they're built to go up, you know? And even if that's only 18 inches, you know, it's like, I don't know. But yeah, exactly. Seeing them too. It's like, what's the point in having something that you keep in a drawer that you can't see?
Yeah.
You know?
You know, I think it works for certain things. You know, the whole, you know, what you keep in, you know, I think that's kind of a personal, I have the things that I will do, and I'm not going to sit there and wag my finger at other people.
Sure.
You know, like I said, I saw the old days where stuff, you know, I said the 12-foot berm in the 250-gallon tank, but my dad had like the old Rubbermaid sweater boxes, you know, and he had stacks of them. And I look back at that now and cringe. And I'm like, ugh. But I mean, honestly, you look at captive keeping. It's like, what's your comfort level with what's acceptable? You know, like when somebody wealthy gets arrested, they still get home confinement. There's still a cage. You know, it's just a cage is a cage is a cage. It could be a room. It could be. There's certain animals I wouldn't keep in tubs, but you know, I think we waste a lot of time putting our feelings onto what other people will do. But that said, I had somebody call or message me on Morph Market about the Nova Guinea pair that I had up. And he's like, oh, do you co-have them? Or he said, do you keep them together? And I was like, no, I keep everything separate. I said, just, I guess you could co-have them. I said I wouldn't recommend it, and I would separate them for feeding. He's like, oh, well, I only have one tank, and, I wanted to keep them together. And, like, in my head, I'm like, yeah, I'm not selling these things. So it's, but then, like, being on the Discord, seeing these enclosures that people have, like, just seeing behind you, like, I have nice, like, branches and some fake, vines and stuff in there, but some of those enclosures are just,
oh yeah,
that blows me away. It's actually kind of in the same mindset of, I want to reduce the amount of animals I have. I've kind of like started thinking I want to make what I have more aesthetically pleasing for me. And I also want to, I've kind of been kicking around the idea lately of I was looking at pictures from the eucalypt savannas of New Guinea where the popwins are found. And I was started thinking to myself, I'm like, how can I recreate this in a 4x2x2, like kind of do like leaf litter and then grasses and maybe get some like fake eucalyptus plants, but like put them in the corners to kind of hide the corners of the cage.
Oh, hell yeah.
So I want to pick the brain of some of the artists, and they're literally artists on the Discord who are creating those amazing enclosures. My whole, I know they're found by water, so I want to do something with water, but I want to make it easy to change. I was thinking of like maybe like trying to do like a cat litter pan with like a good body of water with some overhanging branches over it, so we kind of get them to like post up and ambush over the water. And,
oh hell yeah!
But with popwins, the problem is you just get them soaking. They'll just go in the water, and so I got to make it small enough where they're not going to wedge themselves in it, but big enough where it's like a centerpiece of or a cue on the cage.
I wonder if you did make it big enough, if they would just go in there and like get it out of their system, or if they would like hang out in there all the time.
No, I actually just had to reduce the deli cup size of one of mine in the tub because it was constantly in the water.
What is it with popwins and hanging out in the water?
So doing the research on those, the area that they're found, like it floods out into those billabongs during the rainy season, and they just have to just feel comfortable and secure in there. And I'm wondering, like, this is right about the time that they hatched last year, and they weren't in there all winter long, and it's been super rainy outside lately, and then two of them are constantly back in the water again. I'm like, I wonder if this is a seasonal thing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if they want it at a certain time of year, or if it's I wonder what that is.
Because I'm keeping the tent. I'm not even giving them a night drop now in the room. I have a heater in there that's set at 80, and they're just steady in that water. I was thinking like maybe the water is holding the temperature better, but it's 80 degrees in there at night, so they can't be getting any more warmth out of that. I just think at night they're just like, I'm gonna go in here and hang out. Maybe something will pass by.
So you do overhead heat lamps for your females or for all your adults that are in cages?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then what about when they're gravid, or if they have eggs and you're doing MI? Is it the same thing? Are they just getting a hot spot during the day, or do you have a radiant heat panel?
So the cage that I had done the MI with for the female last year and my xanthic granite this year. They were in the same cage. That has a radiant heat panel.
Okay.
So I kept offset the XXL hide under the heat panel. So half the hide was under it, half the hide was away from it. So I figured they could kind of thermoregulate where they wanted to lay in the hide. The female that ended up passing on me this year, I did the overhead bulb, UVB bulb, and just a heat bulb, kind of offset to the egg box.
Yeah.
So she seemed to favor the side of the nest box that was under the heat, and I would still, it would click off at night, but the room would never go below 80. So
Okay.
yeah, I figured I was just gonna let her lay and then take the eggs. So I wasn't really as concerned about I think if I was gonna do maternal, I would do it under a radiant heat panel so I could constantly keep the temperature steady.
So I've been grappling with this myself. The idea of having a gravid boa, and because I use overhead heating, and at night it goes off and the temperature drops to like 72, 73 degrees. So obviously that's something that I have to take into consideration. And, I did the BOA symposium with Jason and Warren and Brian, and I can't remember if it was Warren or if it was Brian, but they were like, just get one of the, take your heat bulb out and temporarily just put in a deep heat projector and run it off a thermostat. Yeah. And that, so you don't even really have to change anything except for screwing something out, put something new in, and throw it on a thermostat.
I had thought of that this year. I was like, well, I had kicked around the idea of doing MI, and I was like, well, how am I going to keep the heat steady if that? And I thought, the deep heat emitter. But ultimately decided not to do MI with, not to do MI with her. But yeah, that would be the way I would go for a overhead heat source, especially for because they have to be warmer, right? Considerably warmer, 90.
Yeah, I mean, Argentines, they come from a pretty, from a weather standpoint, kind of a wild area where the temperature fluctuations are pretty dramatic. But yeah, ideally, especially if they're gravid, like they're gonna need heat, so that's without question. But I do 25 watt bulbs, and so those they're on a timer, and depending on the ambient temperature in the house, their hotspot might get to 92, 95. And then the next day, if it's cooler and raining out, it might be 87, 88. So it's kind of all over the place.
Nick had said something in a podcast that so I had always done a night drop down to 77, 76, again, depending on what was going on outside. It could be give or take a couple degrees either way. But he said he doesn't do a night drop. And I was like, well, that doesn't seem, it gets cooler at night where they're found. But then he was talking about how you're giving them cues for, okay, it's cooling off. It's time to cycle.
Yeah.
And if you're dropping them down to 75 every night, maybe then they need it down to 69 to get that cue, but that's really not great for them, because it doesn't really get 69 degrees where they're found. So it kind of like the light bulb went off a little bit. I'm like, I kind of have had the idea that maybe I had the idea. I'm like, oh, I'll just get it like them cold this year. I think I took my female down to 72 last year. And then when I wasn't seeing action, I was like, oh, well, let me drop the temperature. And I got them down into like the high 60s. I think a couple nights it might have touched 67, which I'm like, was that too cold? Was that an issue with what was going on? Yeah. So this year I'm like, all right, they're going to stay at a steady 80 degrees. Maybe a night or two I'll drop it down to 77, but then try to get them triggered for breeding at like 72. Like I don't think popwins and equatorial species need to touch the 60s. And it's not like a harder to breed thing like a white lip or a scrub where, you hear people say you got to be a little mean to them to get them to trigger. So that's one change this year.
I've talked to him and he's told me that, if you're already giving them that stimulus throughout the year, then you have to make that stimulus greater when the time comes to drop the temperatures. So yeah, it's a lot to consider for sure. Ideally, I would get my own snake building here pretty soon and I can just temperature control that damn thing. But for right now, they are where they are,
Yeah. So. No, that's the goal. In the next couple of years, like get a finished basement, or we're gonna buy soon. Well, who knows what's gonna happen with the housing market, but the plan is to buy soon and get a dedicated either basement or area garage or something like that.
Yeah. My wife's like, you might have some really great opportunity to buy soon.
Yeah. It could be like an 08 type situation where all of a sudden there's tons of inventory.
Yep. You never know.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, if it's good with you, I think we'll wrap this up.
Yeah, man. Good talk.
Yeah, I gotta piss really bad, so I forgot to do it before I sat down.
Yeah. No worries.
All right, man. Well, thanks for coming on. And,
thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you, and I always appreciate your input on the Discord, and thank you for being a Patreon member, and I appreciate your support for the podcast.
Sure. Appreciate it. I remember it's awesome what you're doing, man. You've really taken this and run with it. I remember messaging with you after the first couple, and you were like, I don't know if this is really going to turn into anything, but I think you've proved that wrong. So keep it going, man. We're all enjoying it.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Adam.